Hi everyone, Roy and Jenny here.
Hello!
Me you can see.
I am invisible.
She you can hear. And we're going to do a tag. So this is the Cozy Coffee Mug tag that was invented by Jen at Literary Love 123. And I was tagged by Monty Adkins at Monty Adkins Books. So, without any more ado, let's get into the whatchamacallits, prompts.
Cozy thingamybobs.
Yes, I have a particularly cosy mug that comes from MJ, my channel Reading This Life. So it's an actual mug of booktube.
And I have this, because I am such a tiny person, I have this tiny little teacup.
Yeah.
I don't drink coffee. It's the work of the devil. I do drink tea.
Oh well. So, and you're out. Right then.
Me out.
Number 1, Hex the Patriarchy. Share your favourite women authors.
I will. It'll come as no surprise to some of you who've been around for a bit that Marge Piercy is one of my favourite authors. American author, feminist, writes lots of poetry, writes lots of novels, most famous for a science fiction novel called Woman on the Edge of Time. Another favourite woman author is Heather Schaefer, which is her pen name is Craig Schaefer, and she writes
Well, some of them are occult detective, aren't they?
Occult detectives. Yeah, she's great. Check her out. Daniel Faust, Harmony Black. Those are her heroes. And
long series, I believe.
Several series all in the same universe. And then I would also like to give a shout out to Richmal Crompton.
Oh!
Who wrote the William Brown books.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes referred to as the Just William books. But I hate that because it was only the first book that was called Just William.
Those Just William books are great, aren't they?
It makes me cross. Yeah, Richmal Crompton. I used to know someone whose parents loved them so much they called her Richmal and she hated it.
Ooh, yeah, that's going the game a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, similarly, not a big surprise, I suppose, I'll name a couple of Victorian authors that were celebrities once. L.T. Mead.
Read Mead.
Wrote dozens of books. Lots of them actually in the girls' school genre, which she kind of helped create. But she did write some supernatural stories and some thrillers and medical mysteries, all sorts of stuff. So L.T. Mead is one. Mary Elizabeth Braddon. She wrote Lady Audley's Secret is probably her most famous work, a sensation novel. So yeah, those would be my two for now. I'm beginning to discover Marie Corelli as well, of the celebrity Victorians. Okay, then we get to never underestimate a woman who reads Stephen King books. Share your favourite fictional women characters. Got any?
Well, I would like to share, again, if you've been around me for any length of time, you'll know that I am a passionate devotee of Arthur Ransom, who wrote children's adventure stories, sort of. They're set in a bit of a parallel universe, I think. The first 4 are based around 2 groups of children. One group of whom has got a sailboat called the Swallow, and the other has got a sailboat called the Amazon. And the Amazon has a crew of 2, and the captain of that crew is Nancy Blackett.
Nancy Blackett.
Nancy Blackett. She was my absolute hero when I was a wee girl. Well, just coming up to teenage. Her real name, her given name, is Ruth.
Okay.
But because they styled themselves as pirates, her and her sister Peggy on the Amazon, she said somebody had told her once that pirates were ruthless, so she changed her name to Nancy, which was the best thing ever.
Awesome.
And then I've also got passing fondness for Hermia from Midsummer Night's Dream, mainly because she's described as though she be but little, she is fierce. And I used to get that thrown at me as if it were an insult when I was a child. But it is actually my kind of rallying cry. Though I be but little, I be fierce and ruthless.
Good. Well, I've got a couple of women I think would have something to say to your ones. Marion Halcombe from the Wilkie Collins novel Woman in White.
Oh.
She is not the woman in white, but she is a character in the book, pretty much the hero. One guy, just to segue into the Swallows and Amazons, there was an absolute craze for the Woman in White novel at the time, which was late 19th century. One fellow named a boat after her, which was rather cool. And there's also a series of modern day sequels where she's like an adventure hero. So Marion Halcombe. I'll also let me name check Red Sonja, the sword and sorcery hero, she devil with a sword. And I'm planning to read a whole bunch of Sonja stuff in November. So okay, moving on. Number 3, Edgar Allan Poe. Share your favourite Gothic book or story.
I don't really do Gothic.
Don't you though? Doesn't everyone?
Like I mean, the only Gothic novel I could think of that I read, which was actually a what's the name? Not a pastiche. What's the other one?
I don't know. A
pastiche.
Oh right, a satire.
Northanger Abbey.
Oh yeah. Well, I think you can absolutely count Northanger Abbey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then
It's almost. Oh God, I've got that. The hat is on my head
the
again.
Hat. Just wear it, man.
I think either wear it or not
Own
wear it.
Own it, don't let it own you.
Yeah, Northanger Abbey.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it's to some extent it's a genre that almost kind of sends itself up a little bit.
Yeah, I suppose it is really.
Well, anyway, I'm going to say Dracula.
Of course.
You know, I mean, it's probably kind of the world's most boring answer, but every time I read it, I find something new, and it spawns so many imitations and pastiches and satires. There's even a Dracula ice lolly.
Really?
Yeah. Well, not now. They've all melted because this was the 1970s.
The little partners about how I played Dracula. You know?
Oh yeah, Jenny's been Dracula in a play version. Very good.
Yes. The children of the night, what sweet music they make.
Yeah, but you don't know any Gothic stories.
Well, I don't know any. No, I've never read any Gothic stories. No.
Okay then, Swiftea. Name your auto-buy authors.
Auto-buy. This again will come as no surprise to anybody who knows me slightly. Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Oh, yeah.
I would buy anything at the moment. He could well let me down. People have done it in the past, but I would always buy Adrian Tchaikovsky and the aforementioned Craig Schaefer. I would always buy Craig Schaefer and N.K. Jemisin, who's a science fiction writer.
Right, okay.
She's brilliant, and I've read loads, and I've got one of hers that's kind of nudging me to be read after the Adrian Tchaikovsky that I'm currently reading.
Good. Well, I saves choosing books.
Yeah, they choose me, mate.
Oh man, I haven't got one at the moment. You know, I've had them in the past. I mean, I think Joe Abercrombie was one for both of us, but just kind of one day I woke up and thought, I'll get to that someday, rather than must buy book immediately. Yeah.
Poor Joe.
I know, yeah, he's probably destitute now, deprived of my income.
Yeah, all right, I buy stuff.
You're still on them, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Our household has Joe Abercrombie books in it. Camp Crystal Lake. Share a book that makes you feel nostalgic. That you haven't already mentioned.
That I haven't already mentioned. Rosemary Sutcliffe.
Oh, yeah.
Mark of the Horse Lord, which I believe I've spoken of before. Rosemary Sutcliffe, the first book of hers I read was The Eagle of the Ninth, which I still love above all others. But The Mark of the Horse Lord kind of caught me on the cusp between adolescence and proper teenageness.
So 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, about that, 18 months. And it's just, I've read it since, and it
holds up.
Holds up, yeah, yeah. I won't attempt to describe the plot, but it features at one point somebody being crowned king, and they have to put their foot on a foot-shaped hole in a rock.
That we've been to.
And we've been to the foot-shaped hole in the rock. It's in Argyll, in Scotland, and what you see is it's on top of a mound, and it's actually a concrete cast of the original. The original is buried under the concrete cast, so it can't get damaged. But I have put my foot in the footstone, and you've got a photograph of me doing it.
I have, which hopefully I can dig
I
out.
hope so. But yeah, that, and also Raymond E. Feist, magician.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, don't you remember? Roy, I went and lived in Leningrad for 5 months, quite early in our relationship, Roy and my relationship. And Roy gave me a copy of Magician by Raymond E. Feist to take with me.
Right, I
You
did.
said, you'll enjoy this, because I hadn't read any fantasy other than Tolkien. And you said, read this, you'll enjoy it. And I did. I loved it. And for some utterly bizarre reason that I couldn't work out, one of the hotel shops in Leningrad had the other 2 books in the series.
That's amazing.
Which was just like, what? So we bought them. And
It was still the Soviet Union, but there were some like joint ventures, they called them. So there were ways for things to be imported into Russia, but you could only get them for dollars
in the hotel
in the hotels.
Yeah. And
so obviously Raymond Feist books were priority export.
Them and Tato's crisps.
From Ireland,
Tato's crisps. Well, the company that ran those joint ventures was an Irish company. That's why Tato's. So you could get things like jeans, and I bought a Levi's jacket from a hotel shop because we could go in because didn't look Russian. Although by the end of it, I kind of did because I'd lost like.
When you weighed 5 stone.
When I weighed 5.5 stone. Yeah.
I had to marry her before she faded away.
Yes.
Anyway,
okay.
yes. So you and I believe your whole group,
well,
or various
3 of us,
others, read the books.
Were absolutely obsessed with them and read them the minute. So the minute I'd finished it, it got passed on to Helen, and Helen read it, and anyway,
Nice.
Yeah, they circulated round.
That's the nicest thing I've heard anybody ever say about Raymond E. Feist.
They were great. I loved them. Anyway.
Good. Yeah, I'm just going to say Conan books, which I've done before, but again, it's a life stage thing.
Change the record.
Time of getting them. I know. Well, yeah. Or be some obscure thing no one's ever heard of.
That's all right.
I guess the Paul Jennings humorous column book. So these were he was a columnist, not the current Australian children's writer. This was a guy who was mainly writing in the 50s and had a column in the Observer newspaper, and they were collected in a series of books called Oddly this, that and the other. And they were around. They were yes, they were around the house when I was growing up. So I'll say them. Right then.
And they were very funny because you read me bits of them.
Oh yeah, they are funny.
Like
They're very funny. Yeah.
You should read that and broadcast it.
If I could find them, they're in a box in the loft. Attic. Happy Halloween. Share a holiday-themed book that you recommend.
Well, again, I don't really do horror-y, ghosty, boasty.
Well, holidays. There are other holidays available.
Yeah, well, I'm taking the Halloween.
Assume that it comes from a sort of horror angle.
Yeah. So my first thought was Ian Rankin standing in another man's grave, which was. I felt the title was very.
Guess he can do anything he likes. Now he's so famous.
which is one of his rebus books. But then I thought, given that Halloween is actually All Hallows Eve or All Souls Eve,
Yeah.
I would have to say the All Souls trilogy.
Ah, those
The All
trilogies.
Souls trilogy by Deborah Harkness. The
Oh.
first of which is A Discovery of Witches.
Oh, okay, yeah,
which
yeah.
is a fantasy, bit ridiculous, but I got all 3 volumes for 99p off Amazon, so I read it. I quite enjoyed it.
Okay.
So yeah, All Souls trilogy, Deborah Harkness.
Well, I'll say something I guess could work really well any time between Halloween and Christmas. That I did a whole review of that I'll link to. That's The Gingerbread Men by Joanna Corrance. So this is a really new supernatural novel. It's set in a remote hotel in Scotland that becomes kind of timeless, and it's surrounded by snow and it seems inescapable. Obviously it has actually got gingerbread in it. It's not monster gingerbread men aren't the threat. It's spookier than that, but yeah, if you want to try something, new author, Gingerbread Men, Joanna Corrance. Right then, this mug contains magic. Share a book you enjoyed that is outside of your comfort zone or typical genre.
Well, now, I have just recently finished Mormonism, A Very Short Introduction by Richard Lyman Bushman. I don't read an awful lot of non-fiction. I broke my non-fiction muscles when I did my PhD. But I've started following somebody on Facebook who is a Mormon and writes a lot about his own faith, which he's very untypical Mormon, I think. And I just wanted to kind of know the background of his stuff, really. And very short introduction books. You've had a couple of them.
Yeah, I've got several. Yeah, they're really good.
You've shown them to people. And it was really interesting. And then I would also like to cite the Ms. Marvel comic.
Oh, yeah.
I don't do
You're not
comics.
really a comic person, are you?
No, I look at a comic and go, where are all the words? Come on, this is just
Zap,
ridiculous.
pal.
Yeah.
That's
but,
comic words.
I watched Ms. Marvel on the television, and I bought the first comic, and I really enjoyed it because I read it on my tablet, so I could see the pictures properly. And it was one specific thing. This is quite a long tale. Birdie Num Num. Birdie Num Num comes from a film, 1968 film called The Party, in which Peter Sellers, who is white and British, wearing brown face, does a ridiculous character with a caricature of an Indian accent. He finds a parrot in a cage, and next to the cage there's a box of bird treats, and someone's written on it in felt pen, Birdie Num Num, and he starts feeding the parrot these things and going, Birdie Num Num, Birdie Num Num. And Rube said her family and her community just found this Birdie Num Num thing absolutely hilarious.
Really?
And you could say Birdie Num Num, and people would just start
Doing their
own version of Birdie Num Num. And she said it was because she knew it was crap, obviously, and and really racist, really racist, in this awful caricature of this ridiculous man, this ridiculous brown paint on his face. But she said at the time there was no representation
at all.
Really.
Yeah.
So to have any representation as a brown person was better than nothing.
Mm.
And Peter Sellers happened to be one of the instances of some kind of brown
Oh, okay.
person. And I found this article by this bloke called, I looked it up obviously, because you do, don't you? Wajahat Ali, who's a journalist, and he wrote on a blog in the PBS news site, and he said, my fellow South Asian friends and I knew Peter Sellers was white when we first saw the movie, but we still watched it. My Pakistani immigrant parents, especially my father, was a huge fan of Peter Sellers. He bought the party on VHS one day and made the family watch it, laughing uproariously as Peter Sellers caused havoc for 90 minutes. And other Desi kids who grew up in the 80s and 90s have similar experiences. It was
So it was like reappropriated by that community.
Cultural moment.
And a part of that, it's found its way into Ms. Marvel, into one corner of a panel.
One corner of a panel of a box of things labelled Birdie Num Num.
Wow.
And it is, once you've seen the clip, it's hard not to fall into the caricature accent, which is, and at the end of the article he says, despite the problematic legacy, so it is hugely problematic, white actor plays brown face buffoon. Despite its problematic legacy, I must confess, to this day I can't help but smile every time I hear someone say Birdie Num Num. Nostalgia dies hard, but hopefully stereotypes die easier. So yeah.
So as one of the many details of Asian culture in the comic,
Yeah.
that's one thing that made you think it was
That's when I
worth
saw,
reading.
Well, no, it wasn't. I already thought it was worth reading. It was when I saw the value of a comic, because there's no way you could put that into a novel, and there's no way you could put it into a television show.
Not well, you suppose you
Not
could,
without
but it wouldn't
somehow having to draw attention to it.
be. Yeah, I
Which
see.
stops it from being funny. The fact that
just
it's
there.
so great is that it's just there on the bottom, right on the bottom shelf. And since I've looked at it again, there's also a panel earlier on in the comic where there's a packet of Birdie Num Num on the counter, and one of the characters has got their hand on it, crushing it.
Wow.
So yeah.
Good.
Birdie Num Num. Ms. Marvel. I haven't liked any other comics since then.
Well,
yeah.
mine is just Akatar. So, as part of a banned book reading group that MJ convened, we read Court of Thorns and Roses, and I did actually quite like it. Probably read more. So, I guess always outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Good thing.
Okay.
I haven't read any comics since.
No.
Hey ho.
Then as for tagging people, it's quite an old tag. I expect lots of people have been done. Let me tag the dynamic duo Duncan, back away from the donkey, and Big Al does BookTube. Okay, that's us. Back soon with something else.
Bye.
Bye.